Welcome back to Amish country. It is spring 1916, US, Brazil, China, Mexico, lots going on. And should my die roll for the US income be very low, then I almost have to rethink this entire video. So it'll be short or long. I mean, it kind of depends on what happens here, right? So it's a 5, and I was hoping that it would be at least that. So I go to an income. I was at 33. I go to 37. That is my wartime location. So I am going to talk you through my options. I have 3 options. Did not discuss these with my allies. Did not discuss these with Brian and Tim, my fellow developers, but I'm going to walk you through it very quickly just to show you my options and what I'm thinking. So let's start with option A. I could declare war. I would have to, it would be on Germany and Austria. I would have to pay an additional 5 to declare war on any other Central Powers. I would be able to lend lease to nationalist China. Now that gives you the best opportunity for global dominance victory objective, which basically means I have to be in Europe with a lot of infantry. Option B is to focus on the Pacific. Now, why would I do that? You know, declaring war on Japan only, lend leasing to China. It's because I would want that security objective. So I would go to war. If Japan was going crazy, and who knows, maybe they still will. I think Brian's been reserved with the Japanese probably to keep me from doing exactly this. But Japan's not going that crazy, so really I don't see that as the best victory objective or the best opportunity. I could still get that victory objective should I go with option A. It's just something that would focus me more. I would also be paying attention, of course, to my friends, the allies. And then peace without victory. U.S. could decide to exert their moral influence through diplomacy, roll a variable die ending starting now. And, you know, it has to be a 12 plus 1 for every capital that's enemy owned. Well, none of them are enemy owned, so it'd have to be 12. Roll a 12 plus 1 to each turn after that. Should I fail that roll, I'd have to pay 5 IPP. So every turn I would lose, just to exert my moral influence, I'd have to pay money. Nobody could blockade, submarines rated as 0, lend lease to both alliances, and, you know, score the neutral victory objective. So the interesting thing is, and I just want to show you, you know, so variable die roll on a 12, I roll a 2, so I would lose 5 IPP. That wouldn't work out. And to show you where we stand right now, I could get that victory objective right now. Had I rolled a 12, this is the lineup. The Allies versus the Central Powers have a split on victory cities because nobody has Peking. Britain, France, primarily colonial objectives have been obtained. Russia has 3 objectives, but has lost 5. So they can only lose up to what they've taken. So they would lose all 3 objectives due to loss of territory that's worth 1 IPP or more. And the USA, as I said, would have 1. The Central Powers, essentially what we'd end up with is a tie, 9-9, if I ended the game right now, except the warlords would give an additional point to the Central Powers. So the Central Powers would actually win. But if, you know, I could assume another reason that you might do that is because to just stop the bleeding. Maybe the Central Powers I don't believe the Central Powers have run away with this game, but should they run away with this game, that would make total sense, maybe for everybody involved, especially if the victory points were really lopsided. So with that, I have whatever I have here, 25, 34, and I've added this up multiple times. I'm going to have to pay 5 because I'm going to declare war on Japan. So that's this. I'm declaring war on the Central Powers, so each of the Central Powers will get a commander, except the Ottomans. Well, the Ottomans would get one, but I'm not declaring war on them. So there. So I'm buying a mine. I'm doing a couple diplomacies. I am putting a colonial down. I get my commander. I have purchased, that's 2 infantry, a submarine, and I'm finishing the battle cruiser. I'm lend-leasing. I'm completing this dreadnought for the British, the French. This is, where's that infantryman going? Oh, I got one to Mexico, and I think I'm placing one down in Brazil. Technically mine now. I get the big red one. I had the privilege, I have this roundel. Doug had a division set, and I bought it a long time ago. I really liked it. It's got all the U.S. Army divisions from World War I. The big red one got their start in World War I, all the divisions, the division structure that we know today. And I just recently had the privilege of training a brigade of the big red one. They still remain a premier division for our U.S. Army. Really, all our divisions are very good. So I have my 4 that were in reserves. I have a recon patrol blimp, which, by the way, these are a little more useful than maybe has appeared so far in the game. They can stop a submarine. First strike capability, do a little sub hunting. I don't know if I'll be able to use it or not. So that's 5 units, 1 for going to war, which I would not have gotten if I had not done the global domination or the Pacific victory. So happy to have that in my kit bag. I have 4 technology, color-coded, red convoy systems, wartime economy, green, improved factories, yellow, and improved logistics, blue. I already have improved construction, which is one of the reasons why things are a little cheaper. If you do the math, I'm actually spending 3 IPP less than I have, or the ships are worth 3 more than I had, but I get the improved construction. So that reduced the cost. So with that, I roll abysmally. I get wartime economy, and that is it. That is the green die. I mean, even the Japanese have wartime economy. It's pretty pitiful. And so my rolling has been about as bad as the Russians. I'm going to roll for my diplomacy was the Netherlands. And I have the Netherlands at level 1 for Germany and Spain level 2 for the Ottomans. I'm rolling for them, going to try and roll them down. Spain's going to be the green die, Netherlands the white die. I need a 2 or less. Had to do a lot of catching up, so some things still may not be entirely right, but I think my diplomacy is correct. And I roll an 11 and 9, so that's not helpful. So this is my purchases. Now, one quick thing about my income is it's going to go up an additional amount, and so is general hand grenades for what's going on in Brazil. But I'll do that at the end. So those are my purchases, and I will get on with it. I'm going to do, there's a lot going on. I have an American attack here into the Marshall Islands, bringing the Navy. I have 3 submarines that are going to raid on this Japanese line. And one of them, this coastal, is going to lay a mine there that will raid from that point on, whether I'm there or not. So that's my plan of action on this side. I'm just going to do the attrition, or an attrition roll. attrition role. I'm in a non-combat Navy round, going to non-combat a few assets here, quite a few assets here. So let's get on with it from maybe this side. And forgive me for not being totally prepared, but there is a lot that needs to take place. So let's start with the convoy raid against the Japanese. I have a U.S. die and I have a Japanese die around here somewhere. Yeah. And Japanese do not have Q ships. One of the things I noted, and when we look at some of the errata that's been taking place, where people have purchased trench fighters or done other things that they aren't necessarily, they're kind of in the nuances of the rules. One of the good things is when the new IPP chart comes out with this version 3, you'll have a lot more reminders across the top of the IPP chart, such as when trench fighters would be purchased, planes upgraded, tanks, etc. So the Japanese, I have 2 submarines that are raiding, one that is laying a mine. And when you lay a mine, you do not roll for that. So I'll start with the coastal sub, which only rolls on a +1. The Americans will be the blue die. So that's a failure for the coastal, and then the regular submarine, that's also a failure. So we'll put that aside. Move those submarines. I have 2 coastal submarines and a regular submarine off volcano islands, and I will lay a mine there for the U.S. on the Japanese line. It would have been helpful if it actually had done something. And then for my attack into the Marshall Islands, this is a very small attack. Give me a moment while I pick up my pieces and move them. So I have 2 transports, 2 cruisers, 3 destroyers, a pre-dreadnought, and a dreadnought. The commander is going to stay with the Navy. I have 3 U.S. Marines and an infantry that are all landing on the Marshall Islands. So I will start with a dreadnought at a 4, a pre-dread at a 3, and 2 cruisers at a 2. So 2, 4, and 3. Be nice if I just blow him out of the water, and I do. So the pre-dread hit. The Japanese have lost the Marshall Islands. That'll put the U.S. up 1 to 38. The Japanese down to 13. And I will mark that with a roundel later. And that was my attack on the Pacific side. On the other side for the U.S., well, technically Brazil is now fully aligned because I'm at war with the Germans. So let me roll an attrition attack into the north of Argentina there. And that's a 6, that's a fail. Let me go ahead and roll for the revolutionaries. And that's an 11, that's a fail. No surprise there. That seems to be about how things been taking place. Now this means a number of things. So I'm done with the Pacific side. Let's go around here. A lot going on. So let's start with the delivery of Lend-Lease to France, because that's an easy one. That'll go to Normandy. I have a U.S. Marine that will board a transport and strategic naval move from New York to Rio, go into port, and deliver that Marine. The infantry from Rio will walk into Pampas. I have a trench line there. Soon I'll be attacking. The transport from Rio will move back to New York. So I have lots of strategic naval move, so that's what will occur. The excuse me, ships from Alpha 45, which is 2 pre-dreads and a coastal submarine, will join my fleet out of port in whatever that is, A47. So that will be a damaged dread, 3 pre-dreads, and a coastal submarine. Already moved that guy. The militia from Chicago will rail to Washington, D.C. The militia from the Midwest will rail to Texas. The seaplane from the southern United States has the range to go to Portugal. So that was my seaplanes movement. For me, the Brazil is worth 4 IPP. So I'm going to go ahead and mark. That's an additional 4 IPP. For Brian, he will increase for Chile and Argentina on his turn. I believe that is the extent of my U.S. activity over here. So I've thought this all through, but there's just a few pieces to move around. So the U.S. will go up an additional 4 IPP to 42, and I have nothing else to claim. I do have, for my own purposes, that'll give me a free diplomacy role because I'll most likely still hold that territory. So let's place units as I bring it around here. So I have a French Lend-Lease I'm going to send to Normandy. So that's his cash and carry artillery, and his infantry will be in Normandy. The British Lend-Lease is a dread that I completed for him and will place in the nearest home territory is there in looks like it has to go into the British Midlands, but into port there. But Brian or Tim can let me know. I am sending an infantry down to the revolutionaries there in Kahula, so that brings that to 4 infantry and artillery and 2 cavalry. I have a colonial. I wanted to point out these colonials. I'm putting a colonial here in the Philippines. I purchased the colonial expansion. It's actually for Global 36, but I wanted these roundels. So Doug sent them to me. They really kind of stand out. And although they're World War II oriented, a lot of the same units existed in World War I. You can see They just kind of stand out on their own. The French have theirs, the Russians have this one. There's a German colonial around here somewhere that I placed on the board. Really like how they stand out. The submarine and the completed cruiser I will place off of Southwest US. So that's the only ships that are there. I will also place, that's going to be a great place for that recon patrol blimp, Southwest United States. I'm going to place the commander in Washington, D.C., because I pretty much have to. I will place 3 infantry in Washington, D.C., with that militia that had railed in there. I have 3 more infantry that I can place in New York. So that's what I'll do. 1, 2, 3. And I will place an infantry and the big red one into New England. So I guess I should show that just so everybody has an appreciation. 3 infantry, a militia, and a commander into Washington, D.C. here. 3 infantry with the militia in New York, and the infantry and the big red one off of New England. So I'll place the commanders for Britain and Austria in a bit. My commander will be, both my commanders are marked effective because essentially they're got enough factories to back them all up. That commander, the excess commanders and that whole rule was kind of born out of the history that many of the European nations and quite frankly even the Ottomans, etc., had a lot of commanders that were either hereditary titles or were similar that they employed, and kind of gave them an excess number of commanders in the field. Not necessarily, not every second son of an earl or duke or lord was very effective. And so it also creates a level of fog of war in this game, because you can determine which commander is going to be active for a particular round, and that could change things. So recruitment for in Mexico is a 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That won't cut it. Misses by 1. So in all things US, I am complete. Let's move over to China. China has 4 IPP. It's going to spend it on 1 cavalry. China is making several attacks. I'm going to show you from this side of the board. They're attacking with 2 cavalry and an infantry against this militia. This is one of the things that I definitely got to change the outcome. The Chinese don't have enough territory. I'm going to roll for Tibet. I'm going to attack, although probably very unsuccessfully, from 2 sides against Shenxi. And I'm going to attack the Germans there with 2 cavalry and an artillery, and then do a little bit of non-combat. But first, we have to start with shuffling. So let's shuffle a little. We've not enjoyed many of the cards that we received. So a little bit more. The first card is the Nationalist, +2 on a recruitment if Japan is Central Powers aligned. That's great. My recruitment right now is an 8. That's again I was 1 territory short from getting a victory point, so that's good. That'll that'll boost me to a 10 and maybe even more if I take some territory. Xinjiang's getting an artillery. It's not helpful because I'm attacking them. So now they've got the opportunity for first strike by placing an artillery into Xinjiang out there on the border with with Russia. And then Yunnan gets a mountain infantry into any territory. That's interesting. That's the territory I was going to non-combat move out of. Let's see if they both survive. Mountain infantry is going to attack on a 2. And my 2 infantry that are there are going to defend on a 4. So mountain infantry is purple. Nope. Oh, he hits one. Well, that actually, that hurts. That hurts. All right. If he hits again, I'll have to change some plans. And I hit. So I am going to have to change my non-combat, but I did take out the mountain infantry, so that's good. All right, now I am attacking into the mountains in Xinjiang with 2 cavalry. So they will attack at a 2 and an infantry at a 1. He has an artillery at 4. So we're going to start with that artillery at 4. And that's a hit, so I lose the infantry before I even get started. And then let me roll my 2 cavalry. It's a miss. And his cavalry is a miss. Let's do that again. No, let's not do that again. That was really kind of awful. That's okay. Maybe I'll make up for it somewhere else. Okay. I have artillery. I have 2 artillery and 2 infantry going into Shenxi. He has an artillery, a mountain. You know, I'm going to change that to an attrition attack. I'm going to change that to an attrition attack because things just aren't going that well. So 2 at a 1 into Shenxi. That's a 1. And the second one is a 10. So I actually get the attrition attack into Shenxi, where he had a militia, a mountain, an infantry, and artillery. So I'm going to take that militia off because it just makes perfect sense. I'm sure he will agree. The Ottomans will agree. They control the warlords. All right, last attack. I'm attacking with an artillery, 2 cavalry against German Shandong. I'm going to start with an artillery at a 4, and that's a 6. 2 cavalry. Quickly, no terrain modifiers. So 1 cavalry is upgunned to a 4, and the other is at a 3. Yeah. That's a miss and a miss, and 1 cavalry retreats on me. So he has a colonial at a 2. And he gets a hit. I mean, he got a hit. That's just unbelievable. And I have to take it off the cavalry that was attacking. So I'm going to stop there. Total failure in a lot of ways. All right. I have 1 non-combat move remaining. That is the infantry from Nanking into Shenxi. You can see kind of a bad outcome all the way around. So, all right. Let me roll for Tibet. Really could use Tibet. And that's a 5. So I don't get any warlord favor. And then lastly, rolling recruitment, took 0 territory, so rolling on a 10 with the random event, and it's a 9. So I get a infantry, and I'm going to place him into Shensi. I'm sorry, Shantung. So Shantung ends with 2 infantry, cavalry, and artillery. Everything else you can see, I got 2 infantry and an artillery in Szechuan. I have an artillery and 2 cavalry into Qinghai. And other than the 1 die, that just really wasn't very favorable. The purchase of 1 cavalry will go to Shantung, so that makes it 2 cavalry, 2 infantry, and an artillery in that location. I've already ruled this, so that concludes that activity. This video is going really long, but we've got one more activity to do, and that is to roll for random events. And so I printed it off actually to speed things up, even though I'm not going very speedy. The first on the west, so I will move to the west side on the board. Romania will align to the French. So that is good news. There's a lot of fighting over Romania. That will pop the French income up to 25. And then let's roll random events. I don't think anything will influence Romania, but just keep that in mind. First, in the west, we roll for 5. Add a free colonial infantry or 1 free camel in every land zone the Ottoman Empire owns in Africa and has a manpower icon. So Africa, the Ottomans own 2 territories. I will leave it up to them to make that placement in Dervish Strait and Darfur Sultanate. So once again, the dice favor our friends in the Central Powers. In the summer of 1916 in the East, I roll a 1. Oh, all right, we finally got one here. The British place a cavalry and a camel in eastern Egypt. So a cavalry and a camel in eastern Egypt. That's good. That will help Britain out. The rest of this I don't really need to read, except I love the historical part, which is the Anzacs are essentially sending a mounted division and Imperial Camel Corps to Egypt as part of the Egyptian Expeditionary Force. So maybe they'll go on the rampage against the Italians or some other such thing. The Ottomans are pretty thick, so they're not very good on defense, but they'll be able to maybe run over some folks in Cyrenaica or something like that. Well, anyways, so that's enough explanation from me. A few things to mark on the board, but otherwise, have a great weekend, and this will give the opportunity for Brian, when he gets up in Canada in Pacific time zone, to go ahead and continue his rampage against the West.